Good morning, guys. So, where did we stop yesterday? So, we finished apportionment, reapportionment, absorption of overheads. We finished two problems. One problem was based on a direct method of reapportionment and step ladder method. And the second problem was based on your simultaneous equations method. So the next part of this chapter relates to something called as machine arrayed. But before we go to machine arrayed, there is one more small concept in the previous part which we had to finish. So I would want you to come to problem number E under important adjustments, case 1. Important adjustments, case 1. So this is something called as the concept of deemed overheads. Okay, so we'll see what this means. When direct wages and materials for service departments is given. Okay, so A, B and C are production departments while D and E are service departments. So see here in this table, particulars A, B, C, D and E have been given. This is the production departments. This is the service departments, right? So now they have given us the total overheads for all the departments. What are these total overheads? The apportioned expenses. They've given us direct wages and direct material for all these 5 departments. And what have they asked us to compute? Compute the total overheads for all departments. So now what will we do? Will we add direct material and direct wages to total overheads? What have they asked us to do? Compute total overheads. Overheads are what? Indirect expenses. Direct wages and direct material are what? Direct expenses. So can you add them? No. If we add direct expenses and indirect expenses, we'll get a total cost. What have they asked in the question? They have not asked for total cost. They've asked for total overheads. So obviously for production department, total overheads will only be 1 lakh. We will not be adding this. Correct? Similarly, for department B, total overheads will only be 2,15,000. We cannot add this because then it will become total cost. Similarly, for department C, total overheads will only be 6,25,000. We cannot add this. But for service departments, what will the total overheads be? All of these. Why? Because anyway, the service department is indirect to the product. The product is not going to pass to the service departments anyways. So even direct material which is used in service department will be indirect to the product because the whole service department is indirect to the product. So think of it like this. Let's say this department D was canteen department. Okay, service department. Now overheads of canteen department have been given at 1,53,000. They have given us direct wages and direct material. What will be the direct wages for canteen department? The cooks who are working there. Those cooks, are they related to the product? No, right? Anyway, they are indirect to the product. And what will the direct material in canteen department be? All the food, right? That is being cooked to prepare the final meal, right? So anyway, that is indirect to the product. It doesn't matter. So for service departments, all expenses, whether direct, whether indirect, will be added and they will be overheads because the entire service department by itself is indirect to the product. So this is the concept of deemed overheads. Guys, did you all understand? So we will quickly calculate the total overheads. So this is E. This is E. Important adjustments. So in that case 1, calculation of total overheads, calculation of total overheads. So particulars A, B, C, D and E. So overheads given, guys, how many? 1 lakh, 2 lakh 15,000, 6 lakh 25,000, 1 lakh 53,000, 3 lakh 35,000. Correct? Now to this we add direct wages, but direct wages will not come for ABC because ABC are my production departments. For ABC, the product is being manufactured in these departments. So in ABC, whatever direct wages and direct material are putting, that is completely direct to the product. So that is part of prime cost. We are not talking about overheads there. But the direct wages in D and E will be considered. So 67,000, 1 lakh 15,000. Similarly, direct material, nil nil nil, 85,000, 46,000. So tell me the total overheads. So total overheads 1 lakh, 2 lakh 15,000, 6 lakh 25,000, 3 lakh 5,000, and 4 lakh 96,000. Okay, so we will now move on to the next concept, which is that of machine hour rate. Okay, machine hour rate. So what do you mean by machine hour rate? So basically machine hour rate is nothing but calculating the overhead rate associated with a machine. So when you have a machine in place which is used for manufacturing a given product, there are a lot of costs associated with that machine, correct? And those costs are indirect, correct? So how do you calculate the overhead rate associated with a machine? That is your machine hour rate. So machine hour rate formula is total overheads related to the machine divided by effective machine hours. So now we need to understand what is this overhead related to the machine and what are these effective machine hours. Okay, so total overheads related to the machine can be categorized into two types. Okay, first one, fixed expenses or standing charges. Okay, so all your fixed expenses will be grouped under this category, and variable expenses or machine expenses. So whether the machine is functioning or it is not functioning, these expenses will be incurred. And variable expenses of the machine are those expenses which will be incurred depending on the usage of the machine. Okay, so what expenses come under each of these categories? This is not a complete list, but most of the expenses are being put here. Suppose they give something new in the examination, obviously you have to apply yourself and put it either under fixed or under variable. So rent, lighting, foreman salary, insurance premium, supervisor salary, indirect expenses, departmental overheads, sundries, etc. are considered to be fixed. Depreciation, repairs and maintenance, electricity, power, consumable stores, chemicals, oil, fuel, etc. are considered to be variable. Guys, depreciation could be both. Okay, so when you're calculating a depreciation on a straight line basis, then it will be fixed. Depreciation could also be variable if it varies with the usage. Okay, so it depends. But actually speaking, practically speaking, depreciation is based on usage. It is variable, correct? But even if you group it under fixed, no problem. Okay, so that's fine. So once you have collated all your costs together, what do you get? You get your numerator, which is the total overheads related to the machine. Okay, now we need to calculate machine hour rate, which means the overhead rate per hour, which means we will need to divide these total overheads by the total effective machine hours. So how do you calculate effective machine hours? Now, whatever they have given to you in the problem, that the machine was available for this time, the machine ran for this time, we will put all of them together. When the machine did not run, we will remove those hours, and whatever is left will be my effective machine hours. Now, sometimes certain terms will confuse us when it comes to the problem. Okay, so what are those terms? Okay, so sometimes they will tell in the problem that the machine was left for maintenance for these many hours. So what do you do with those maintenance hours? Now always remember, when we are talking about effective machine hours, what do you mean by effective machine hours? Effective machine hours are productive machine hours, when the machine was actually running. Okay, so now what is considered as productive? So in the denominator, you will only take your productive machine hours. So we need to figure out of all the components that they've given to us, what is productive and what is unproductive. So see here, suppose they give us maintenance time. So they say that the machine was put for maintenance for 100 hours. So will you take that under effective machine hours? No. Why? Because we considered that maintenance time to be unproductive. The machine did not do any work during that maintenance time. So suppose in your total hours, these 100 hours are included. What will you do? You will remove them. Okay, so we are not going to take any unproductive hours under effective machine hours. Only productive hours will be taken under effective machine hours. Runtime. Runtime obviously always has to be productive. There is no debate over that. Runtime means what? When the machine is running, when the machine is working, that has to be productive. Now one major question which will confuse most of them: setup time. What is setup time? So you're making it available for production, correct? So you're setting up the machine. So there are assembly costs involved there. You assemble your machine, you get all the parts together, you test it. All of those things are your setup activities. So when the machine is being set up, okay, would you consider that to be productive time or unproductive time? It depends. Okay, if the question states that setup time is productive, then what will you do? You will consider it in your effective machine hours. If they say no, setup time is unproductive, don't consider it, then if it is included, you will remove it from the effective machine hours. So see here, productive, it is part of effective machine hours. Unproductive, it is not part of machine hours. So look in the question what they have given. If they have given this to be productive, we will do accordingly. If they have given this to be unproductive, we will do accordingly. Suppose the question is silent. They have given you a setup time, okay, and the question is silent. They have not told if that setup time is productive or unproductive. Then what do you do? So you could do anything actually. Okay, you could include it also and say that it is productive. You could exclude it also and say it is unproductive. But usually what do we follow? We follow that if nothing is specified in the problem regarding setup time, it is considered to be unproductive and not part of effective machine hours. So if the question is silent, what will you do? Consider setup time to be unproductive, which means what? If it is included in the total number of effective machine hours, you will remove it. And what will you do? Write a note. Because the question is silent, right? The question is silent. You have not, seen anything in the question. The question has not given you any information. You are making an assumption. So when you are making an assumption, you have to write a note to that aspect. Is that okay, guys? Everyone? Okay. So if the question is silent, we assume it to be unproductive and then we will write a note in that regard. So that is how you will calculate your machine hour rate. So once we have a numerator in place, we have a denominator in place, we will calculate and we will be done. We will show the, in the question, in our solution, that this is our machine hour rate. Now usually machine hour rate problems are very simple. The only thing that causes confusion is this power cost. Okay, so first confusion will be your effective machine hours. Okay, but now that with this table that I showed you, run time, setup time, maintenance time, there won't be any confusion. Why? Because in the denominator you have to take effective machine hours, and effective machine hours means productive hours. So denominator only has to be productive hours. Now the second confusion will be in relation to this power cost. Okay, so in the question they may have given you the power cost, and when you're calculating power cost, how they give you the question is they will give you the cost per unit of power. Okay, and they will tell you in 1 hour how many units of power are consumed. Okay, so now you will have to calculate power cost. So how will you calculate? Cost per unit of power into number of units will give you the cost of power in 1 hour. But you have to multiply that cost with some number of hours. Now which number of hours will you multiply with? Okay, that is what causes the confusion usually, because you have two kinds of hours associated with machine hour rate. Okay, one is effective machine hours, that is different. The hours for calculating power cost may also be different. So it's not necessary that both have to be same. So students get confused. Oh, but effective machine hours have calculated 1000 hours, but power cost have calculated 1100 hours. Is that possible? Yes, it is possible. So when you are calculating power cost, the number of hours that you multiply to get the total power cost may be very different from your effective machine hours. It's all right. Let it be different. Okay, so this is what causes the confusion. So in order to clear this confusion, what I have done is I have given you many instances of how to calculate power cost. So if you come to your problems here, come to case 2. Come to case 2. In your problems, last part of this particular chapter. So see here, I've given you the steps used in calculating machine hour rate, which we have already implemented. Okay, so we will now move on to the last part of this chapter, over and under absorption of overheads, and how to treat over and under absorption. Now guys, yesterday if you remember, what did I tell you? Overheads are all about estimation. So we did so many problems, right? The first problem that we did here, see this, we got this factory overhead 193, 64, 83. All this is estimated. All this is estimated. Correct? Similarly, in the second problem, if you remember, we had power, rent, fuel and heat, insurance, taxes, depreciation. Everything is estimated. Correct? Why? Because overheads can be ascertained only at the end of the period. In the middle, if something comes and if you need to give a quote, if you need to determine the cost of your product, then what do? You have to rely on estimation. So in overheads, everything is based on estimation. So when you are charging overheads to your product also, everything is estimated. Okay, so when you're charging overheads, what happens? Yesterday we had seen, right? Suppose I'm manufacturing a product. Okay, let's say I'm manufacturing a product. Now this product, I will put direct material, direct labor, I will put direct expenses, I will get my prime cost. Now to this prime cost, I will add my overheads. Let's say this particular product passes through department 1 and passes through department 2. So it takes, say, 1 hour in department 1 and it takes, say, 2 hours in department 2. So what did you do? You determined the overhead cost per hour for each of these departments yesterday, correct? When we did our apportionment and reapportionment. And then what did you do? You charged that cost to each department, correct? Depending on the number of hours which the product took in each department, correct? So now in department 1, what did you do? You took 1 hour, and let's say when you calculated the overhead rate, say you get 3 rupees here and say you get 4 rupees here. So what did you do? You told, ma'am, in department 1, the product is only taking 1 hour and overhead rate that I calculated based on apportionment and reapportionment was 3 rupees. So 1 hour into 3 rupees will be the overhead cost here. So what did you get? 3 rupees. And similarly in department 2, you said, ma'am, it takes only 2 hours and I have calculated the overhead rate to be 4 rupees. So it is 8 rupees total. Correct? This is what you did yesterday. We solved also, we did the entire apportionment, reapportionment. Then we also did the cost sheet based on that overhead rate that we calculated. So ideally this is what you're going to be doing when it comes to overheads. Now guys, since you are dealing with estimation, ultimately it's estimation, right? In the end of the period, when you check your actual costs, because actual overheads will be determined only at the end of the period. This is in the middle, correct? When you check your actual costs, is it necessary that those two will match? Not necessary, no. Actual and estimated may not match. There may be differences, correct? So those differences between actual and estimated overheads results in under or over absorption of overheads. What? Under or over absorption of overheads. So guys, what is under absorption? Under absorption means undercharged, which means you have charged less, which means you have estimated less, which means when you compared your estimated with actual, what did you see? Actual was more than estimated. So estimated or absorbed or charged all mean the same. Guys, okay? And similarly, when we talk about over absorption, okay, over means what? Overcharged. Overcharged. So when you compare your actual with what you have estimated, you see that you estimated way more than what was actual. So in this particular case, actual is less than estimated, or absorbed, or charged. Sometimes they also say recovered. All mean the same. Estimated, absorbed, charged, recovered, all mean the same. Guys, is it okay? Everybody. Now, when there is under absorption and over absorption, you have to treat it right, because it's not as per your actual figures. You cannot do things as per estimated figures. Estimated figures we did because we didn't have a choice. Now that we have our actuals with us, profitability has to be calculated on actuals. So at the end of the year, when I'm calculating my profits, this under absorption and over absorption has to be corrected. Okay, that is what we are going to be checking in this particular part of the chapter that if there is under absorption or over absorption, how is that under or over absorption corrected? Okay, what are we supposed to do with it? How are we supposed to treat it? But before we go to that, I have to teach you, not teach you, rather remind you how to calculate actual and estimated. Okay, actual no need to calculate, that they will give in the problem, that this was the actual expense which was incurred. Now, how do you calculate absorbed overhead? How do you calculate absorbed overhead? Guys, so absorbed overhead is calculated as, so I think I've given it in the, I've not given it. See here, come to the concepts. Absorbed overhead is calculated as predetermined overhead rate into actual base. I will explain it, what this means. Predetermined overhead rate into actual base. So this is how absorbed overhead is calculated. So when I tell you with the help of an example, you'll be like, oh, okay, this is absorbed. Okay, if it's the same feeling, tell me. Okay, so predetermined rate into actual base. So absorbed overhead is nothing but predetermined rate into actual base. Now the question is, what is this predetermined rate? So predetermined rate, come to the previous page, is nothing but budgeted amount of overhead divided by budgeted base. You know what this predetermined overhead rate is? Yesterday in the problem you calculated, no? You did apportionment, then you did reapportionment. After reapportionment, what did you do? You divided it by the number of hours. So that overhead after reapportionment is nothing but budgeted amount of overhead. Budgeted base is the number of hours with which you divided it. Then you got overhead rate. That is nothing but your predetermined rate. So in my example here, I told for department 1 it is 3 rupees, no? This is nothing but predetermined overhead rate. And for department 2 I told 4 rupees. This is nothing but predetermined overhead rate. So you already know how to calculate it. Yes or no? So what is absorbed? This is absorbed. So how did you calculate 3 rupees and 8 rupees? You took this predetermined overhead rate and multiplied it with the actual hours which the product spent in department 1 and department 2. Yes or no? Everybody? Correct? No. So are we studying something which we have never studied before? No, right? We're just trying to connect what we already know. So this we know. No tension. What is absorbed rate? Overhead. What is absorbed overhead rate? Your predetermined overhead rate which we calculated into actual base. In my example, the actual base was hours. The product actually took 1 hour in department 1 and it took 2 hours in department 2. So I multiplied it with the predetermined overhead rate which I calculated, which was 3 and 4 rupees respectively, and got my absorbed overhead. So what did I get the values? I got 3 and 8. Now 3 and 8 when I compare with the actual overhead will be different. Maybe different. So that will result in under/over absorption. So if there is under or over absorption, what do I do? So whatever we have done here with respect to 1 unit of the product. What you will do in the problem, you will do in total. That's it. That's the only difference. Guys, did you all understand? Everybody, shall we move on? So now come to your concepts. Let's understand what to do with under/over absorption. Okay, so suppose now there is a difference in absorption, which means what I have charged is not the same as my actual. So I get a difference. So absorbed overhead minus actual overhead is what I'm seeing. So suppose I have absorbed more than what is actually incurred. What will I get, guys? Over absorption. I've absorbed more. Overcharge. Over absorption. I have charged more, but actually it was not that much. So here absorbed overhead is greater than actual overhead. Similarly, if absorbed overhead is less than actual overhead, what will I get? Actually, I've incurred more, but I've charged less. I will get under absorption, undercharge. Guys, correct? No? Everybody. So now if there is over absorption and under absorption, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? So let's see. If there is under absorption, first you need to figure out why didn't you charge like the way you have incurred. So you have to figure out the reasons, and those reasons can be divided into two types: normal reasons, abnormal reasons. Abnormal reasons, if your under absorption is due to abnormal reasons, what will you do with it? Treat it by charging it to costing P&L account. Guys, correct? No? Basically, when there is under absorption, what am I trying to say? I have charged less, which means I've shown less cost. Cost was more, I have shown less. It's problematic. I should have shown more. Yes or no? So now this cost I will transfer to costing P&L account because of abnormal reason. And if under absorption is due to normal reason, then what will I do? Then I will treat it by increasing the cost. I showed less. I shouldn't have showed less. Now, okay, fine. Now the deed is done. I have shown less. Now what do? Okay, increase the cost. I will increase the cost. That will automatically be shown as increase in cost. How? How will I increase the cost? So whatever is this amount of under absorption due to normal reasons, I will divide it between my units sold, my closing stock of finished goods, and my closing stock of WIP. So all the units in my organization, what could they be? The sales units, correct? The closing stock units which are lying in my godown, and apart from that I may have some unfinished units which are lying in my godown which I need to finish, which are what? WIP units. So I will divide this difference between all these units because now they have to bear this cost. They are valued less because I charged less. Now I have to increase their value. That's what I'm doing. Guys, okay? Sometimes in the problem, basically you just have to divide the cost in ratio between these three. But sometimes in the problem, they ask you to calculate something called as supplementary rate. Guys, supplementary rate is nothing. I will tell you what it is when we solve the problem. Okay, so remember this point. In the problem, sometimes they tell us calculate supplementary rate and only then show treatment of under absorption. For that separately marks they give. So if you don't calculate supplementary rate, you lose marks. Supplementary rate is nothing. I will tell you what supplementary rate is. If you charge using supplementary rate or you divide it in the ratio of the units, same answer you will get. Okay, same answer you will get, no change. But if they ask you to calculate using supplementary rate, you have to do as per supplementary rate only. Guys, is it okay? If there is under absorption, sorry, over absorption, then what do? Guys, same thing. You write off to your costing P&L account. Either it is credited to costing P&L account, or here you increase the cost. No, here you decrease the cost. That's all. So whatever is happening here, ulta will happen when there is over absorption. So that is called as cost reversal. Okay, so to do this, we are going to pass some journal entries. Those journal entries will become ulta when it comes to over absorption. Okay, so you'll understand this better when we do the problem. Okay, so now when it comes to the overheads chapter, if they have given you a full-blown problem on only under absorption / over absorption, you will do all this. But if under absorption or over absorption were to come in non-integrated or integrated accounts, then don't do all this. What do we usually do? Write off to P&L account. That's all. Because a non-integrated or integrated accounting problem in itself is so long. And this problem also in itself is so long. So you cannot sit and do this there. So what do? You write off to P&L account. Okay. Sometimes for under absorption and over absorption, some organizations, what they also do is, you can make a note of it, carry forward to next period for over absorption also. Carry forward to next period. But can you carry forward to next period? No, not unless it is stated in the problem. If it is given in the problem, then you carry forward to next period. If it is not given in the problem, please don't carry forward to next period. Guys, is it okay? Everybody. So now a quick recap of what we did. Under absorption, over absorption. Under absorption means undercharge. Over absorption means overcharge. Undercharge means I've shown less cost, but I've incurred more. Over absorption means I've shown more cost, but I've incurred less. Correct? So for under absorption, how will I calculate under absorption? Actual overhead will be more than absorbed overhead. So actual minus absorbed will give me under absorption. And when we come to over absorption, what will happen? Absorbed overhead will be more than actual overhead. So how will I get my value of over absorption? Absorbed overhead minus actual overhead. Now treatment of under absorption. How do I treat under absorption? First step is to figure out whether it was because of normal reasons or abnormal reasons. If it was normal reasons, if it was abnormal reasons, I will transfer to costing P&L account. If it was normal reasons, then I will treat it by increasing my costs. How? By dividing that under absorption between sales units, closing stock units, and closing WIP units. There could also be a calculation of supplementary rate involved, which I will see. And the second method of treating under absorption could be to carry forward to the next period. Guys, is it okay? Over absorption. How will I treat over absorption? Either I carry it forward to the next period only if given in the problem, or transfer it to costing P&L account, or cost reversal. What is cost reversal? Ulta of what we did under normal reasons for under absorption. And when under/over absorption is coming in this chapter, then what am I supposed to do? Do all this. Correct? If under or over absorption is coming in integrated or non-integrated accounts, then there I will not do any of this. I will simply transfer it to costing P&L account or carry it forward, as the case may be, depending on whatever the question states. Is this okay? Everybody. Shall we move on to the problem? So let's move on to the problem.